r/malicious compliance. Just fix the truck. On my first enlistment in the Army, I was a mechanic. In our unit, we had 3 staff sergeants for some reason. Sergeant T was on the last year of his contract and would be retiring. He was assigned as the motor supply sergeant, a position that was made up so he could ride the pine since we were overstaffed. Sergeant Gee was assigned as the maintenance supervisor and oversaw the preventative maintenance and repair of the vehicles in the motor pool. The third one was our platoon sergeant and doesn't feature in the story. Every Monday, the vehicle operators would come to the motor pool to perform their weekly vehicle inspections. The mechanics would effect any repairs that were possible at the time, like changing out burnt bulbs, stuff that was easy and could get the vehicle rolling. Then we would begin performing repairs to any vehicle that had a deadline deficiency, a deficiency that needs to be repaired before the vehicle can be operated. These don't necessarily mean the vehicle isn't operational, just that operating the vehicle in that condition can cause greater problems. Then we'd fix the rest. Usually on Friday, we'd order any parts that we needed to repair what was left. After the operators left on Monday, the inspection sheets were divvied up between the mechanics and we got to work. One week I had a fairly easy workload and got all of my sheets finished by Wednesday. There was only one vehicle that had a deadline deficiency left, and the rest were ordering parts. The vehicle in question had been taken by the operators every day. I called the unit to let them know that the vehicle had a deadline deficiency and needed to return to the motor pool. They were short on vehicles and long on work and had been stalling, so I informed my squad leader and left it at that. I went to the office and began ordering parts. When my work was completed, I would assist other mechanics with theirs. Sergeant G walks in and asks why I was in the office, and I informed him that the rest of my work was complete and I was ordering parts. He asked to see my inspection sheets and started looking through them. I tried to explain about the one vehicle, but he cut me off and said he'd see what the paper said. He saw the deadline deficiency and ordered me out to repair that vehicle immediately. I tried to object and explain the situation, but he cut me off again and ordered me to go out and fix the vehicle. I tried a third time to explain. Again, he cuts me off and says, "I don't want your f***ing excuses. I want your butt out on the line fixing that f***ing truck. If I see you doing anything else before it's fixed, it'll be an Article 15. An Article 15 is non-judicial punishment and can result in reduction of rank or forfeiture of pay. Roger, Sarge, I'm on it. I walked to the rack of manuals for the vehicles, pulled the appropriate one, and found the size of the bolts on the part that needed changed. Grabbed my wrenches and head out to the assigned spot for the vehicle. I laid down right there, raised my tools, and began making wrenching motions with my arms. I did this for over an hour, with some breaks, of course. Those were some giant wrenches. I saw people looking at me and pointing. Eventually, someone went to Sergeant T and told him what I was doing, and he comes over to check it out. He watches me wrenching for a minute or two, head cocked. "What are you doing, squirrel?" "Fixing this truck, Sergeant. It's got a deadline." He was looking at me real funny now, like I had heat stroke or something. "Squirrel, you do realize that the truck ain't here, right?" "Sarge, I know this, and you know this, but Sergeant G doesn't want to hear my f***ing excuses. He wants my butt out on the line fixing this f***ing truck." Sergeant T told me to get up and get back to work. I told him that G had threatened an Article 15. He said he'd take care of it. I took a smoke break to give them time to resolve the issue before I went back to the office. Not sure what Sergeant T said, but G had a scowl on his face when I came back to order my parts.
Making stupid people look stupid is satisfying, but to do it in the military without getting in trouble must be the best thing ever. Great story. Hopefully he didn't take it out on you afterwards.
He spent his time trying to make my life miserable even before this, but he did get his comeuppance eventually.
This sounds like you've got a bonus story to tell. So do tell.
It's a bit of a long story. Essentially, he played favorites with a small group of soldiers who had similar interests as he. Almost all of these soldiers at the time were newer soldiers, E2 and E3. These guys were the lowest rank and were constantly in his office chatting. There were 3 E4s in the unit who really drove production. They were the ones who would do the troubleshooting, and they walked around making sure shit was done right. I was not one of these people. I did my work, but I wasn't as mechanically inclined as these guys. Morale started to collapse, as was predictable. When the older guys see the newer guys doing F-all, it isn't very inspiring. He got hit by the E4 Mafia. They started doing everything by the book and drew out every task they were given, just overall gumming up the works. Nothing actionable from a disciplinary standpoint. And when the role models for your unit start this, it cascades. Work slowed to a crawl, productivity plummeted, and the other NCOs started questioning why. They could plainly see that morale was crap, but they also didn't have anything actionable at that point. I had injured my ankle at one point and was in an air cast. Profile said couldn't run, couldn't stand for more than a few minutes. My squad leader saw one of the privates wrestling with a front windshield for a Hummer and asked if I could help him. He said that I would be sitting on the hood and wouldn't technically be violating my profile, and the soldier was clearly struggling. So I climbed up and tried to give him a hand. As soon as I got up there, G called the private into his office with the rest of his buddies. I tried my best to get the windshield in, and a few minutes later, G stuck his head out the door and asked why I wasn't finished with the fucking windshield yet. I exploded. It was quite the funny scene from what I've heard. I slid off the Hummer, hopping on one leg, threw my wrench at my toolbox, and was just generally cussin' and spittin'. G was yelling back, of course. My squad leader runs up and asks what's going on, and I explain in an animated fashion. He turns to G and asks if any of this is true. G pulls rank and tells him to come to parade rest, which he does. G is shouting about heads rolling and all that. Problem for G is that the platoon sergeant's office was just above the maintenance office. He opens his office window and asks what the F is going on because crap is getting out of control. Platoon sergeant separates us, sends me to have a smoke, and tries to sort out what's going on. G is yelling that we're all being insubordinate and wants our heads. I mean, he ain't wrong, but he left a lot out of his story. Squad leader explains the situation, and then the platoon sergeant starts asking questions of everyone in the platoon. G's treatment of soldiers starts coming out in full. Now the platoon leader is getting actionable information on the cause of the low morale. He comes to me and says that from what he's gathered, I have a definite E0 complaint. Bias and harassment chief among them. He says that he would back me if I want to file an E0 complaint, but asks that I let him handle it. He was an ex-drill sergeant, very high integrity. He'd always been fair in his dealings, so I agree. He gives me the afternoon off. When I come back the next day, crap has changed. Platoon leader did an investigation and didn't like what he was hearing. He brought the complaint to the commanding officer. I heard that they eventually placed a letter of reprimand in his personnel file, which would effectively kill his chances of promotion. I can't actually verify this. A soldier in H-Quay told me, and he was a fairly reliable source, but not all rumors are true, and as is appropriate, I would not be informed of such an action. Way above my pay grade. He still held the position of maintenance supervisor for a while, but he could no longer directly address the soldiers for the purposes of work. They brought a desk into a storage room so that he'd have a space away from everyone. Anything that he needed done was passed through the squad leaders or platoon sergeant. He was transferred not too long after that, if I recall properly, not sure where and didn't care. I was verbally reprimanded for my part in the commotion. They were lenient because they felt that I actually was being targeted. But I was made aware that my behavior was not acceptable, and in the future, I should bring any complaints to my leaders before it got to that point.
Wow, this was a longer one, but very much enjoyable to hear. The second part was a comment made by OP, but could be an entire post on its own, really. Best part is the same guy got his share twice. Once again, I'm always open to criticism. Anything you guys can tell me will help. Let me know what you guys thought of the story in the comments, and share any stories you guys might have as well. The link to the original post, as always, will be in the description, and make sure to follow for new videos every day.